Hi friends, I'm Ashley and welcome to Darling Cottage Diary. Today we are talking about all kinds of how to begin journaling, different types of journals I have, how I use all these different types of journals, because that is probably the biggest question I get asked. And right after that is, please, can you do a flip through video? I've had an increase in following over the holiday season, as well as just people who have migrated from other social medias. If you're new to my channel, I got started with my little journaling journey on the Clock app around 2021, and I don't know, I'm focusing more on YouTube now for a lot of different reasons, but primarily I really like the long form content. I feel like I get to connect with you guys better, and it makes more sense for me for a lot of reasons. So first off, I'd like to talk about this altered book. It's a 1920s book, and I don't do very many artistic pieces in here because I don't like covering up the poetry in the stories. What I add to it, particularly like this one, I can still read the story but I don't know, for me it enhances it. It's my book. I'm not going to give this to anybody. I've had people talk a lot of being upset about this page in particular because it got a lot of attention in my short form content of just, I was ruining a perfectly good book. That's probably the first biggest misconception that I hear from people, especially when I use vintage book pages, when I do altered books. And I totally understand the impulse of people wanting to preserve books, for sure. But for me, because it's mine, it enhances it, and it makes me see the poetry in different ways, and it helps me add to the love of the book. And then using vintage book pages in my other artwork and collages, I love the look of printed text. I love the look of written text. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's the feeling of sitting down and reading or sitting down and writing a letter. It helps encapsulate those emotions I feel when I do those things, and that really helps bring some coziness to whatever I'm doing. So I see it as recycling and enhancing. I don't really see it as wasting. So moving on to this journal I'm using here, this is the first big journal that I started working in, and it's about half full. It's about halfway full. When I moved to long form content, because it's so long, it's kind of hard to capture it all in the film, the way my camera sits, and so I stopped using it so much. I was mostly doing this for the short form content. This page was was right after the war broke out in Ukraine. I was feeling all kinds of ways about it, and this helped me get through some of those emotions. And that's one thing about art journaling that a lot of people don't think about. This one too meant a lot to me. This was almost exactly a year after my grandmother passed away, and the story here, I had written down some things about her that I wanted to remember as like a little saga about her, and I wanted to create this page because my grandfather had found this beautiful creamy pink dish, and she had written my name on it. That's her handwriting up at the top. She had written my name on it to give it to me after she passed, and he had come across it when he was going through her things, and he had brought it over, and I needed to do this to do some processing, this is one of my favorite pages I've ever made because every element is about her. And that, I think, is a huge part of art journaling. They can be super personal, and I was bawling the entire time I made that. And it made me feel better, for sure. And now I have this beautiful thing to look back on with all this stuff about her when I want to remember her. But then these other pages are just interests that I have. I love learning about outer space. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. I love collecting things and researching Victorian cabinets of curiosity. A lot of the art journaling that I do has to do with my interests, if I see a movie that really moves me, or if I read a book that really moves me and I can't stop thinking about it, art journaling kind of helps me, like stops my brain from constantly going back and thinking about it so much. And other things, people ask me to make themes. At this point, people had started asking me to make different pages, and so I would sit there and mull them over, in downtime, and then kind of have an idea in my head and sit down with a lot of the elements that could go on the page, but I never know what it's going to look like when I sit down to do it. And I think that is part of a lot of what stops a lot of people of doing collage work and art journaling is they don't know what it's going to look like, and so they feel like they can't start because they want it to be perfect. And I've had a lot of people say that to me on social media of just this, I don't know how you do this. I would be so scared I would mess it up. And that's the point, is it doesn't matter what you do. If you don't like it, you can always burn it. It's like at the very least, if you are just done with it and you don't like how it's coming out at all and you can't go back and fix it or cover it up or whatever, or add elements to it, you can burn it. And that thought of just being able to poof something out of the universe because I don't like it kind of takes the pressure off, and it helps me let loose a little bit, feel a little more free in working on whatever it is. This was a past, present, future page. This one was The Rats of Nim, which remains one of my favorite books and movies of all time. If you haven't seen the 1980s cartoon, it is a little on the darker side, as most of the 80s cartoons were, but it's so good. This one was inspired by my boyfriend. We had been together for about a year when I made this page, year and a half maybe, and that letter is the first letter he ever wrote me, and it means a lot. And I had this idea of, I can make a little message in a bottle out of some recycled cereal bags and a sticker. And then every element here has to do with our relationship. We're both space nerds with the moon, and he always gives me flowers with the botanical tape, and it reminds me of him. And then this one was inspired by a song, which is Shatter Me, and it's a really, really awesome violin song with the collaboration is Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm and Lindsay Sterling, who's amazing. And I was going through a really tough time at that point of just trying to figure out what I wanted in my life. I went through a lot of changes in 2020 and 2021, like I think a lot of people did, and I was confronted with a lot of assumed truths rather than actual truths I found kind of in my life. And so I was doing a lot of inner work at that time, and I really love how that page turned out for that reason. So some of these just reflect my personality. Some of them, again, are requests. That last one was a request for somebody who had lost their mother, and they wanted kind of a mother-daughter page. This one, I just was done with people that day, and I really wanted to feel, I don't know, part of the woods. This one, and any of these that I have like ASMR videos for, especially because I know a lot of people are new recently, I'll link them in the little cards. If you're watching this on a TV, you probably won't be able to see it, but if you're watching it on another device, you'll be able to see the links pop up. But, and a lot of them are also on various social medias, on my Clock app or my Facebook app, or even on my shorts here on YouTube. So you just kind of have to look through. If you see anything in particular you'd like to learn how to make, please comment that below, because I can't remember what I've made on some places rather than others. This is the first time I've actually done a flip through for myself, and was really cool. If you are already a journaler, I definitely recommend doing this, because not only did it show me kind of how I've evolved as an artist, and also, of course, with the writing journals, learned about how much different I think now. It also re-inspired me to redo some things and to kind of improve upon some designs I did. So it also reminded me of just stuff that was going on in my life at that time, of when I was making these and how I was feeling, what was going on. So it's something to definitely do for yourself. And this kind of segues into, if you're wanting to, begin journaling, the kind of primary question you need to ask is, why do you want to journal? My answer to that might look different to yours. My answer is, I like being able to look back and remember things in more detail, particularly emotions or thoughts. I'm pretty good at remembering events without writing them down, but I don't always remember how I feel at that time. And so I have so many different journals, you guys. I sat down and wrote them down here. I have a religious studies one, which it doesn't matter what religion you're part of, even if you don't have any kind of spirituality and you're like a science person, you still ascribe to various beliefs because you have seen them in action. You understand gravity because you experience it. You understand the wind because you experience it. These are still connections to something bigger than yourself that you experience and feel, but still can't always prove beyond a reason of a doubt. Science is always evolving, just like any kind of other spiritual thoughts. So if whatever that is that you study, if you want to study various religions, your own, your heritage, whatever it is, I like having one of those. It's very grounding for me, and it takes me outside of myself. And I'm learning something about my lineage and the people who came before me, and I really appreciate that. Speaking of that, this is like an astrological series that I did. I'm showing several of them. I don't think I get to all of them, but and this is probably one of my top 3 favorites I've ever made, was a Jekyll and Hyde, and I set it to the 5 Finger Death Punch song on all of my other social medias. It was a short, and it was so fun to make. It was just so much of my stuff has been calming and girly, and that was just like my hard rock side, and it was so fun. But anyway, beyond a religious or spiritual kind of studies journal, I have a thoughts and mental health kind of dump where I, maybe use oracle cards, or I use a dream that I had, or just something that's really bothering me and I'm ruminating and I can't stop thinking about it. I use that as a way to get the thoughts out of my head and onto a page, and it usually helps me work through things. So that's a separate journal. And then I have, and I also put daily happinesses in there too, of just really exciting things. This was one of those, and I had just a few scrapbooking pages in it on some really funny things that happened, like the possum getting in my house. I will link that one as well, as a little trip, a little romantic weekend that I took my boyfriend on for his birthday this past summer. So it's fun. I like to mix just kind of daily life with all of these very heady thoughts that I get in my head. So I also have a language studies one. I speak French, and it's not my native language, and so I like keeping up with that. I have large art journals that you're seeing here. I have small art journals that you'll see later. I have drawing and painting notebooks and journals. I have a normal planner that I stick to of just what I need to do every day, how many steps I've taken in a day, things that I need to do, grocery list, things like that. I'm using the Daphne's Diary one this year, and it's so good. Not sponsored. I love her style, and it has everything I need in it in a planner, so I've been very happy with it so far. I'm also starting a bullet journal / tracker journal this year, and that was the Soft Life video I made a few videos ago. And I'm going to be setting up the trackers, I think, this coming weekend, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So, because there are a few things, like with my health and with some other like mental stuff that I want to keep track of. Also, like, I've never done a reading log, even though I read constantly. So I want to have some trackers. May have or may have not been influenced by other lovely journaling people here on YouTube to do that. So I'm excited to try that one out. And then, the last one I have listed here is just kind of a play journal. And if you've seen any of my journals where I use the Real Littles journals, I have some Disney ones where they partnered with Disney, as well as the ones they've sent me, the ones I've straight up bought. I have quite a collection at this point, and I really like them because it reminds me to be a kid. They're just, you know, these little $10 journals, they're $10, $11 journals that have little mini supplies that come with them, stickers or pens or whatever it is, and they usually have little locks and hidden passages and all the things that my childhood Ashley loved. And so I like getting in those, and they're small too, so there's less pressure to make something look really, you know, a certain way, and it's doesn't take that much time. So I like having a play journal as well. And sometimes I write in those, but those are mostly just collaging and sometimes painting and stuff. So those are the different types that I use, and they all serve different purposes. But I think an important thing to remember is if you are starting, this can seem really overwhelming. I didn't start all of these journals on the same day. None. I started one, and I've always kind of been a diary person. I dropped off a little bit whenever I had my kids because they kind of all consumed, having babies kind of all consumes your focus, and it's hard to get back to yourself. It's hard to feel like a separate person beyond being a caregiver and beyond taking care of your children whom you love so much. And so journaling has helped me kind of feel like my own person by myself again, separate from them. And I think that's been really important. I think that's important for a lot of people to do, especially after they become parents or they've been a caregiver in another way. So that's not, I didn't start with all of these. I started with one big one, and then I started wanting to make my own little ones, which I have videos of how I did those. I started making very, very teeny tiny ones. And I actually sell those because the pressure to fill up that little bitty page is so small that it's something I can knock out in 20 minutes, and I feel so refreshed after doing it. You never want to get into journaling or really any craft and feel like it's something you have to do or you have to check off a list, because as soon as you make that transition over to something you have to do, it's not fun anymore. I'm telling you right now, it's not fun, and you won't want to do it anymore. So you have so many other things throughout the day that you have to do, that you need to do. Journaling, it has to be something that you don't have to do, that you do just for fun. And it's very renewing for me in that way. This one I made for, there's kind of like a Celtic, my heritage is a lot of like ancient Celtic and Norse Germanic peoples. And so I celebrate a lot of the traditional holidays. And so that one is all about like the returning light and candles. And it was like, I've got to figure out a way how to put real lights in my journal. And I found something to do that with. And that's one of the videos I have here too. So anyway, my primary takeaway here is figure out which one you want to start with and start with that one. And then if it's not quite meeting your needs, or if you just find a really pretty journal somewhere that you want, get that one too. You don't have to fill up one whole journal before you can move to another one. That's something that feeling like I'm in a box is something that will make me shut down my creativity so fast. And that's another reason why I have all of these different ones, because sometimes I want to work in this vintagey looking one with the handmade thick paper, and it's, you know, darker paper. Sometimes I want it to have that look on the background, and sometimes I want to have the white sheet. Sometimes I have the watercolor paper sheet. Sometimes I want a black paper on the back. Sometimes I want the lined paper so that I can write what I'm going to write. It just comes down to how I am feeling that day and what I need for my mind and my spirit to make me feel better. This haunted estate series was so much fun, and I think most of y'all started following me around this time, and it was really fun to have this whole story with several pages. And it was fun to do at the time. It was fun to conclude though, because I started feeling like I was in a box. So maybe you're not like that. Maybe you like more structure, but I have so much structure everywhere in my life that journaling is the one place where I can do whatever I want. And like I said, if I don't like it, I can burn it in my fire pit in my backyard. And I actually, I've never really done that. I've written letters to people and didn't send them. I burned them. But, or I've written out some feelings that I knew I didn't want to revisit later, and I burned those, which surprisingly makes you feel better. If you've never tried that, highly recommend. But, I've never actually burned a journaling page because I didn't like it. It's just the possibility of I can get rid of it, that makes me feel, it makes the perfectionism go away. So definitely recommend if you are a recovering perfectionist as well. So moving on to I know I've talked a lot about feelings, but journaling is so much about feeling, or it is for me. I know some people like just having their strict trackers. I know some people like it being a space of organization for them. And I definitely have my planner for that. And I have, I'm going to be having my trackers this year. But up until now, journaling has been a space where I feel comfortable feeling my feelings. I don't really feel that way being around other people. Maybe that is it's just an introvert thing. Maybe that, I don't know what that is, but it's been really good for me to kind of get into my mind and my body in a good way. So that's why I'm talking about that, the kind of the ethereal sense of journaling. I'll get into the nuts and bolts in a little bit. But the last kind of emotional question and topic I wanted to talk about here, because I hear it so often. I hear it in my comment sections all the time. And it's, I feel like I would waste it, or I feel like I would ruin it, or I feel like I'm wasting the supplies if I invested in that and treated myself to those things. And then I started. Like, I should save these perfect stickers for the perfect spread. I should save this ink for writing the most perfect poetry or letter. I should save this beautiful ephemera for the exact thing that I want it to be. And I understand that impulse on a cellular level. I really do. I have unused sticker sheets from the early 90s when I was a child because I felt that way and still feel that way. And doing the art journaling has been a way for me to teach myself that I am worth the time, that I'm worth the money and the supplies, that I am worth doing something purely for the enjoyment, and because I'm a person who commodifies everything. And I don't know if that's being an American or if that's being just somebody who's ambitious. I'm not sure what it is. It is fortunate that it's worked out, that I have been able to share my stuff and make things for people, and they've been nice enough to buy them or support me in other ways, and that's been wonderful and fantastic in so many ways. But it didn't start out that way. It was just, I wanted to chronicle how I was making these things and find a community of people who are doing it too. And I know the word community is thrown around a lot, but I wanted friends who did the crafting thing too, or people who understood the crafting bug. And that helped in this area. But when it comes to feeling like you're wasting things, that's another reason I started with, really small things. I started with an old journal that I had, and when I filled that up, I made a little one out of an old box, out of an old ink box. And by the time I had filled that one, I was to the point where I was like, this is something that I really love, I really enjoy. I don't feel guilty anymore about buying things for this. So if you feel like you're wasting something, you need to reflect a lot on how you feel about your self-worth. And I know that sounds very, woo-woo and psychological and self-helpy. It's not meant to. That is coming from the bottom of my heart because I've been through that. And I want you to feel good about yourself. Anyway, so kind of moving on to the idea of the nuts and bolts of things. To get started, you don't even need a journal itself. You can buy a nice one if that makes you feel good, but if you're strapped, you can make one out of, paper, an old box. If you have a sewing machine, it makes it easier on you. And the rest of it is just things that you find. I have made confetti, like little punch hole confetti out of fall leaves. I've made little shakers out of sequins off of an old shirt that I found. I've made journal covers out of thrifted clothing. Possibilities are kind of endless. So you look at what you have and try to figure out what kind of other life it could have. And that really feeds your creativity too. So I highly recommend doing that. I have lots of also just little, what I think the YouTube ladies call it folios. And it's just really small papers, like, 5 to 10 pages that have pockets and stuff like that. And, those are easy to fill up too. And you don't feel like you're wasting something. So if you need to start there and work up, go for it. I am going to take a second before I run out of time here to thank my Ephemera Club for supporting me this month. Shayna, Krista, Donna, Kristen, Cindy, Abigail, Kathleen, Joanna, Rebecca, Sasha, Patsy, Teresa, Effie, Kim, Emily, Carly, Carrie, LP, Crystal, Tracy, Britt, Alicia, Kenna, Rachel, Denise, W, Jennifer, Ariel, and Rasha. Ephemera Club is just a monthly support. I'll leave the link below. And you get digital ephemera that you can print out as many times as you want to use in your journals. I make it personally, or I find it from vintage items and I digitize it. Or you can join Ephemera Club, which is a small parcel of handmade things that I send you every month, and y'all get to vote on the themes. There's all kinds of fun stuff that we get to do. So thank you so much. Please consider liking and subscribing if you like this video and other ASMR related stuff. Bye!